We are leaving the Brit Hotel in Loudeac, and we're going to try and re-establish the route to Hague. In this video, I will describe 4 strategies to tackle the 2023 Paris Brest Paris, discuss the advantages and disadvantages of each, and at the end of the video, I will let you in on the strategy which I intend to follow. This video is also the 5th and final video in our series of the reconnaissance that we've undertaken of the Paris Brest Paris route that we completed in April of 2022. Right in front and then right again. We start this video with our departure from the checkpoint in Loudeac and embark on the 169-kilometer ride to the city of Brest on the west coast of France. I will occasionally depart from the main topic of discussion in the video to comment on the amazing scenery that we will be riding through. The first strategy to success of the Paris Brest Paris is probably the most popular and commonly described as a race to Brest and then tour to Paris. The rationale behind this strategy is to try to bank as much time as possible in the first half of the Paris Brest Paris by riding as fast as possible without any or potentially minimal sleep for the first 604 kilometers. On the return leg of the Paris Brest Paris, the goal is first to sleep in Brest, then ease the pace of riding, and then carefully manage the time in hand over the remaining distance. The motivation behind this strategy is that you are allowed at least 40 hours to ride from Rambouillet to Brest and then 50 hours to return from Brest to Rambouillet. This is at least true for the randonneers in the 90-hour time limit group. The closing times for the various checkpoints along the way will reflect this difference in riding pace between the outward and inward bound sections of the event. The advantage of the race to Brest strategy is that you will have the reassurance that you have completed at least half the distance of the event before taking any meaningful time to sleep, and that you would have banked a sufficient amount of time to comfortably enjoy the return leg. The disadvantage of this strategy is that you run the risk of overextending yourself by trying to ride all the way to Brest in a single attempt. By riding the first 600 kilometers with minimal or no sleep at all and at a pace that you may not be accustomed to may just cause you to exhaust yourself too quickly and early in the event. Once you have depleted your reserves, it can be very difficult to recover, and you may lose much more time on the return leg than you would have originally intended to. I suspect many novice riders, such as myself, will be caught up in the excitement at the start of the Paris Brest Paris and be whisked down the road by the faster and stronger randonneers at a pace much faster than they had originally planned to ride. If this happens to you and you feel that you may be at your limit while riding on the way to Brest, slow down, catch your breath, and think carefully about whether this may be the most appropriate strategy for yourself to complete the event. Remember, Brest is just the halfway point, and that you will need to repeat all that effort that you've made to get to Brest to get back to Rambouillet, and you will have the disadvantage of not having had much sleep in Brest to be able to recover and be ready for that return leg. Yes, that looks like a brand new baby. It must have just been born a few hours before we got here. So just the cutest thing ever. Just as beautiful as this scenery, this farm scenery. It's so rustic. Beautiful hills and cultivated lands and livestock. Yeah, it's just a beautiful scene. Once we had passed through the beautiful scenery just west of Loudeac, we arrived at our first important landmark of this section of the route. This is the town of Saint Nicolas du Pelem, which is frequently a secret checkpoint on both legs of the Paris Brest Paris. It is easy to appreciate why this town is chosen as a secret checkpoint, as the roads through the town narrow significantly and the randonneers may be funneled into single file before being allowed to rejoin the main roads. No, we couldn't get through there. That's all locked. So I suspect that this is all part of the secret checkpoint. It looks as though, although it allows us in at the bottom here, the top section is actually locked and closed. So we're going to have to try and find another way to get back to the route of the Paris Brest Paris 2019. We were given some direction by a very helpful local gentleman who guided us on our way onward to Brest. Can I take a photo?
Plus levé qu'atteint.
Yeah, okay. We go up.
Tout droit. Après, c'est plat. C'est plat.
Yeah. The second strategy is to divide the event into shorter distance segments and then pace yourself consistently across the segments you have created. From riding 2 other 1,200 kilometer events in the past year, I have observed that the most popular distance allocations for these segments are an initial 400 kilometers, followed by 2 300 kilometer segments, and then a final segment of 200 kilometers. From talking to other experienced randonneers, I've learned that they may occasionally create 4 equal segments of 300 kilometers that are similarly paced for the duration of the 1,200 kilometer event. These short segments allow you to sleep frequently and recover adequately, and then allow you to ride in the most efficient manner. This strategy is particularly well suited to randonneers in the 84-hour limit group, who can ride consistently during the day and then sleep at similar times and for similar lengths of time over 3 consecutive nights. The 1,200 kilometer events we completed in Minnesota and Virginia were based on this format, and we found that this strategy was very effective to successfully complete these 1,200 kilometer events. The biggest advantage of this strategy is that you allow yourself sufficient time to sleep so that you are able to ride when you feel most refreshed. The disadvantage of this is that it's very difficult to adopt if you are in the 90-hour limit group. Most riders in the 90-hour group will reach the 400 kilometer milestone during the day, when it may be much more difficult to sleep. While it is possible to convert the subsequent segments into cycles that allow you to sleep at night, doing so may require riding for a longer initial segment, which will then allow you to pace yourself into a ride in the day. Doing so may require riding for an initial longer segment, which will then allow you to pace yourself into a schedule that allows you to ride in the day and sleep at night. The initial longer segment required to convert the 90-hour start times into a more familiar diurnal cycle makes me suspect that this may be the strategy behind the race to Brest approach described earlier. I will at this point diverge from the strategy discussion to advise that we have arrived at the checkpoint in Carhaix. Let's listen to the commentary. So we are at Carhaix, or I think as it's supposed to be pronounced Carhaix, which is the checkpoint for stage 6 of the Paris Brest Paris 2019 edition. It looks like this is some kind of a school or some kind of educational institution, but I have to say that it looks pretty much abandoned. It doesn't look really well kept, so probably not going to be the checkpoint for 2023. The most prominent feature of this beautiful town is the series of elegant statues that greet you as you enter the town and guide you within. This series of statues of famous French cyclists was particularly impressive, and we could not resist joining in the rush of the race. Don't miss the opportunity to take a selfie with the cyclists cast in bronze and the trio of ladies watching from a distance. A third strategy to riding the Paris Brest Paris is to just completely follow your initiative on the road. Ride as comfortably as possible and then just rest and sleep when you feel you need to do so. Of course, all the time being cognizant of the time limits of the checkpoints along the way. The advantage of this approach is that it allows you to be flexible with the conditions. If you are in the 90 hours time limit group and feel tired at 300 kilometers, then just stop and rest. Then look at the time limits and decide how far you want to ride before sleeping again. You, however, have to be continuously aware of the checkpoint time limits, and particularly the time checkpoint in Rambouillet that you have to arrive at to be counted as an official finisher. The disadvantage of this approach is that you have to be very disciplined to complete within the time limit. If you are riding comfortably at the beginning of the Paris Brest Paris and fall behind due to taking it too easy, then you have to ensure that you have the discipline and energy reserves to speed up sufficiently to get back on track. I would not recommend this approach for the novice. Leave this approach to those mileage-hardened randonneurs accustomed to pushing themselves to the limit to meet a deadline when delayed by mechanical or other factors. Once we had ascended the highest point along the Paris Brest Paris with its famous radio tower, we descended to the coast. Just outside of Brest, we passed through the town of Cizoun with its magnificent cathedral and delicious boulangerie. We can appreciate why this town is so highly recommended as a rest stop, either before entering or leaving Brest. I made a mental note to consider sleeping on this comfortable bench in the churchyard if the necessity arose during the Paris Brest Paris. A fourth and perhaps the least popular strategy to ride the Paris Brest Paris is a negative split. This will require a sensible and comfortable pace all the way to Brest to just reach there within the 40-hour cut-off time. This is one of the routes for the Tour de France 2022. And it's going to be for Brest. 2021. Oh, sorry. This was the Tour de France route for 2021. Then, with a full reserve of energy, you should be able to return to Paris at a much faster pace. The advantage of this approach is that you should theoretically have a full tank of gas in reserve to effectively tackle the return leg. The disadvantage of this strategy is, however, that if you run into a problem on the way back, you may not have enough time to overcome that issue and complete within the allotted time, even with a full tank of gas. By now we are entering the outskirts of the city of Brest with its spectacular seaside scenery. We cross that famous bridge that many randonneurs in the past have wished was the finish line. The bridge itself is a very popular tourist destination, and you should expect lots of spectators if you pass through in the daytime. Congratulations.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, let's
Paris to Brest.
let's put this here. Congratulations.
Thank you so much
Oh, this
for
is
giving me,
wow, wonderful. So this is Brest. This is the B in PVP. It's the Brest. And we are just so excited and so happy to be here. From the bridge, we followed a cycle path through the city to the turnaround at the checkpoint. Welcome to the checkpoint of stage 7 of the Paris Brest Paris. This is the checkpoint for the 2019 route. And yes, it seems to be some kind of official institution of some sort. I'm not exactly sure what it is. It's all locked up at the moment. It's probably because this is currently a public holiday. But this at least was the checkpoint for the 2019 Paris Brest Paris in the city of Brest. It is at this point that it seems appropriate to share insight into my own strategy for the Paris Brest Paris and a recommendation. After considering all the potential strategies for the Paris Brest Paris, I would recommend that you do what you have practiced in earlier events. I would caution against doing something different to what you have previously practiced. I honestly don't think that the Paris Brest Paris is the event for you to try new strategies. It is held too infrequently, and for most randonneurs, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and that's why I think you should not gamble with your opportunity to ride the Paris Brest Paris by taking on a strategy that you're not familiar with. I start in the afternoon on Sunday the 20th at 4 p.m. in the 80 hours group. My strategy will be to try to go as far as possible through the first night and day until I can sleep somewhere during the second night. I hope to arrive in Brest or further by the second night, when I will then try to have some sleep. I have only been successful at this strategy once before in a 1200 kilometer ride, and 3 subsequent attempts to replicate riding through the first night and day have been disappointing. In these subsequent attempts, I have not been able to ride further than 425 kilometers without having to stop and sleep. This is largely because I was not able to bank sufficient time during the day leading up to my afternoon starts. So I will keep my options open by aiming for Brest, but being prepared to stop earlier. Once we had located the checkpoint in Brest, we went off in search of a place to rest for the night and prepare for the return journey. Next week, we will return to Rambouillet by retracing our pedal strokes on the road. During our reconnaissance, we took the easy way back to Paris with a high-speed luxury train. Let me know in the comments what strategy you will employ for the Paris Brest Paris and how successful your strategy has been in previous editions. Remember to like and subscribe, and I wish you all the very best for your 2023 Paris Brest Paris event.